everyone, and welcome back to the Entertainment Esquire. Today we'll be discussing celebrity lawsuits in the context of Ohio Sheriff's Police Department defamation lawsuit against rapper Afroman. Let's get started. So if you are wondering who Afroman is, as I was wondering before I came across this lawsuit, he is a 51-year-old rapper with a hit song called Because I Got High. And his real name is Joseph Foreman. And he was sued by the Adams County Sheriff's Office in Ohio over defamation. This all started with a raid of his home in August of 2022. And the search didn't lead to any criminal charges. Supposedly, it was a drug search. And again, I'm assuming they didn't find anything because nothing led to any criminal charges. And Afroman then decided to use the footage of this search as a part as satire in a music video, just to show the ridiculousness of the search. And so, again, I guess they were publicly embarrassed by this footage in this music video, and so they decided to sue him for defamation. Now, they actually sued him for three things. So before I get to the verdict, they sued him for defamation, invasion of privacy, and false light. So I'm going to quickly break down what each of those things mean in Ohio and what you would have to prove in the state of Ohio for these three things, and why he was ultimately successful. So let's start off with defamation. That's the easy one. I think I've talked about defamation on this show a million times, right? Defamation, remember, is a false statement of fact, so not opinion, published, meaning you put it somewhere, right? You either write it somewhere where people can publicly see it, or you say it to a third party that harms the person's reputation and causes them damages. Now, if it's just a normal person like a police officer that is unknown, the police officers obviously in this department are not famous, you only have to prove negligence. If they were public officials, you would have to prove malice. And so in this case, starting off the bat, there is no false statement. He merely showed the footage of the actual search of the home, right? So there's no false statement. But even if you want to say there's a false statement, that was published because he did make a music video and published it online so that third parties could see it. You have to prove that he was negligent by publishing it. Again, if someone is publishing footage of a home due to a raid, which again, that becomes a part of a public police record, there's just no false statement that was published, and it certainly doesn't appear that it was published with negligence. Moving on to invasion of privacy. You actually only have to prove one of these things. Unlike with defamation, you have to prove all four elements that I mentioned. So you either have to show that someone intentionally or wrongfully evaded your personal private activities, home, or records like eavesdropping, peeping, snooping, things of that nature. Or you have to show there was a public disclosure of private facts or sensitive info that is not of legitimate public concern, or publish information that creates misleading and highly offensive impressions of a person, or using a person's name to or name, image, or personality, so their likeness, for commercial, trade, or advertisement purposes. So off the bat, there was no intrusion into anyone's person's private, activities or home. If anything, they came into his house. So we can scratch number one off the list. And then we have public disclosure of private facts. Again, he didn't disclose any private facts, to my knowledge, of any of the police officers that participated in the raid. So that leaves publishing info that creates misleading or highly offensive impression of a person. So he did publish the raid. That is probably highly offensive, but I don't think it's misleading because it's actually what occurred, right? So I don't think it's highly offensive and misleading. It's only highly offensive. So I don't think, again, the police would have been able to reach that threshold for that particular element. And then the fourth element, again, you don't have to prove all four, using a person's name, image, or personal likeness for commercial trade or advertisement purposes. So in this case, I think if they were going to have a case, they were going to have a case on this element, because it was used commercially, right? Their image and likeness without their permission was used in this music video. They did not say that they wanted the footage of them raiding the home to be used in a video. Once you do a music video, it is in commerce. And so I think that was their strongest claim. But I will get to why ultimately the court decided that freedom of speech prevails over that particular claim. Moving on, we have false light. False light is if a person discloses false information and paints them in a highly offensive and misleading light. So here again, it has to be a public disclosure, which it was. It was a music video. False or misleading, it was neither. He just posted the footage as was. It was highly offensive, probably. A reasonable person would probably be highly offended. And then reckless disregard to the information being false. Again, the information he published was the actual footage of his home, so it wasn't false. So they're not going to meet the elements there. And so false light off the bat, defamation off the bat, they're not going to meet. So as far as I'm concerned, it came down to, essentially it came down to invasion of privacy, right? With him commercially using the footage in the music video. I also think it's an interesting way to turn something negative into something positive, because some of us listening to this show have been arrested or searched on their person or their homes, and they felt like it was unwarranted and unprovoked, and it still happened anyway. And so good for him for turning something negative into something positive. I actually hope he is going to make a lot of money off that music video of that footage of the search that turned up nothing. So why ultimately do I think that the judge sided with Afroman as it relates to specifically invasion of privacy? Because I think we know that defamation and false light were going to be hard things for the police department to prove out the gate. Well, short answer, First Amendment. First Amendment rights actually trump a lot of other rights. And in this case, even though they may have had a claim about them using their likeness in a music video for commercial use without their permission, the court ruled that Afroman's First Amendment artistic expression, satire, and social commentary actually trumped those rights of their likeness being used in the music video without their permission. And so, again, I felt like that would have been their only claim anyway from the beginning when I looked at this case. And so I'm glad that the judge still ruled for Afroman. I am an entertainment attorney, so good for him for standing up for his artistic expression. And he made a really good point in court. I wouldn't have the footage, which again is not misleading, it's the actual footage of the search of his home. I wouldn't have this footage if you hadn't come to search my home, where again, ultimately you didn't find any drugs. Ultimately, there were no criminal charges pursued. So if you hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have had any footage, right, to include in this music video. So essentially you brought it on yourself. You know, you get what you get, you don't pitch a fit, as they say. And so I find it really, really interesting that he was able to stand on this when against the police department in Ohio, no less. And so I think it's a really interesting case about defamation, false light, and invasion of privacy. And hopefully you learned something about those three things today. Thank you for joining the show. You can watch me on YouTube weekly and obviously listen to me on all all audio platforms like iHeartMusic, Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music. You can listen to me everywhere. And in the meantime, you can also follow me on social media at The Entertainment ESQ. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Entertainment Esquire. Find our show on YouTube at The Entertainment Esquire and on social media at The Entertainment ESQ. Need a legal consultation? Need a lawyer referral or legal resources for your business or legal matters? Then visit us at theentertainmentesq.com. Until next time, thank you for listening.